this is Sophie. I'm 20 years old. I'm a vet tech student, and I want to talk about invisible disability and the human experience. The title being just another weirdo, referring to the fact of my experience of life is just a little different. I have always struggled, and it took me a long time to get my diagnoses because no one believed me. Everyone just said, you're a little quirky, you're a little weird. And everyone can be a little quirky and a little weird, but this is for the people that just know in their gut that there's something a little off. I've always been an advocate for trusting your gut because it has never let me down. I want to talk about my life in general, give a couple anecdotes just to introduce you to me. I have 3 Mongolian gerbils, 2 rats, a betta, a corn snake. She's a snow morph for anyone that's interested, and I have an eastern painted turtle. I have a cat that's at my parents' house because I live in an apartment with my boyfriend now, and we unfortunately can't have a cat in this apartment. I'm hoping to move into an apartment that allows cats, and for anyone that's worried about him attacking any of my animals, they are all locked safely away, and the only ones he really likes to bother are the gerbils, but he mostly just sits in front of the cage and watches them. So recently I had a RA flare-up, and mine are really, really bad, so I can't really go to work and work at my kind of job. I work at a pizza place, and you're constantly on your feet, and you're running around, and I also work at a dog kennel, which I feel like is easier. You think it wouldn't be, but it's easier on my body, especially since I can sit down a bit more, and at a restaurant setting, you can't really sit down. But anyways, so I was really sick, and I had to just call out of work, and then I had to call out of work again, and it was only 2 days in a row, thankfully. But I generally don't get it received well when I have to call out for that much, and people tend to call me like weak or whiny or a baby. But I also have some good experiences where people are like, no, you need that time, take it off, I want you to get better, and stuff like that. But for the people that don't understand, it is extremely frustrating, and invisible disabilities, especially since I'm only 20 years old, if I haven't mentioned that, I was diagnosed at 17 but started showing symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis at 12 years old. I unfortunately didn't get my diagnosis until 17 because I didn't really have a lot of doctors that listened to me, and my mom was on the fence of whether to listen to me and keep fighting or listen to the doctors because they weren't finding anything, and there's just also a lot of life struggles in between, so sometimes going to doctors was secondary. So there's all sorts of mismatch and whatever the heck. Sorry if you can hear the street noise. I'm going to try to get rid of that and delete this section if you can't hear the street noise. I'm a little discombobulated when I talk, and I don't know if that's because of autism, which I also have. I have a very hard time focusing my thoughts. I used to be on methylphenidate, which would help, but unfortunately, I'm no longer prescribed that medication because I lost my psychiatrist because I moved to a big city, and I stayed there for a few months, but then I got kicked out of my apartment. That's another story, though, and if you want to hear that one, you are more than welcome to try and get me to tell that story. I'm not really against it, I just forget a lot, and I often leave all sorts of questions for people. Usually when I explain things, I have to be told, hey, what does that mean, what does that mean, what does that mean, because I'm just so all over the place. But I also am working on my speech repetitiveness. I know I do but, I know I do a lot. I have taken a public speaking course. It was a college credit course in high school, and that was very, very fun. I'm a person that I love to talk, but at the same time, I also hate to talk. I hate when I'm really anxious and I'm forced to talk. I believe that's part of the autism. Because I also have anxiety and depression, I don't know if that is the cause. However, I use however a lot too. I'm going to be calling myself out a lot on those. I don't know if I'll be leaving these in or if I'll be cutting these out, but we'll find out. My mother was a bit older when she had me, and she was 30-something. 36, 34, 32. I think she was 32 when she had me. I don't know when she had my brother. I don't like when people say, like, oh, I have ADHD, even though they're undiagnosed, and they're like, that's why I can't do anything. And it's like, have you put in the work, though, to remember? Have you put in the work to change your behavior, or are you just blaming it on a diagnosis you don't have? Especially since it's so frustrating, where I had to work very, very, very hard to get my diagnoses that I have now to prove the fact that I actually do have a disability and it does affect my everyday life. And it kind of ruins it for everyone else that does have these actual diagnoses that interrupt their life. And I'm sorry that I am on a soapbox right now, but there we go. But more things I have to work on. I will get there, though. I really wish that people would pay more attention to their language. I find it incredibly frustrating, especially as a person that has trouble socially and communicating, and I just got really distracted because one of my rats found a seed in her little foraging toy, and she found one, and she's very excited over it, and it's very cute. I wish that people would pay more attention to their language, especially when I'm an incredibly sensitive person. I have gotten a lot better at not being so sensitive, but right now, currently, I'm no longer on my duloxetine, which is an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. It also helps with my pain with RA, which is very nice. I'm also on pain medication, hydroxychloroquine, pantoprazole, which is an antacid. Hydroxychloroquine is an immunosuppressant. My pain medication is celecoxib. I don't mind sharing any of these details because I know that some people will be like, hey, I'm on that medication. I also know the side effects that it has, and it kind of sucks. I'm also on Montelukast, which is an asthma medication. However, some reason it helps my gastrointestinal system. That's being explored by a CRNP, PN. I don't know. It's on my medication bottle. I'm not going to dig that out right now. She is very interested in my case. The doctor, on the other hand, he didn't seem so interested in helping me. The actual doctor that's at the practice of the immunologist I'm going to. Asthma and immunology are typically fields that go hand in hand, and they're usually in the same office, if you didn't know. I am still having trouble with gastrointestinal issues, and I'm sticking with my immunologist right now, and I'm gonna go back to my gastro because it is gastrointestinal related problems, and I should see an immunologist, and I might switch one if I can't get a good answer. I'm also going to my rheumatologist and hopefully going to get a recommendation for genetics testing, because fortunately I do have insurance that is paid for by my parents, that is funded by the state because they are state workers. So I'm very fortunate in that situation in order to have health insurance and be able to do this genetic testing and be able to have the medication I have and go to the doctors that I do. And I want to say I'm very, very, very grateful for that. And even getting diagnoses and even getting help and management and a treatment plan. And I want to recognize that really quick is I talk about my medications and my therapist and stuff like that. And I want to say, if you can't get those things and you feel like you do deserve and need those things, but you can't due to financial reasons, and you can't get insurance because of financial reasons, that sucks. And I was there at one point when my family was not doing very well, and I understand how frustrating it is. And I kind of crackle up a little bit because it was so terrible. I remember going down to basically only being able to eat rabbit food. I remember being in so much pain that I just didn't want to do anything anymore. I couldn't do things that I wanted to. I had anxiety and depression, so I lost interest in doing the things I wanted to. And that led to some very unfortunate events. Just a little trigger warning about cutting, suicide, self-harm, things like that. I did attempt to take my life. I did a lot of cutting. I was in the hospital for a while. And I think this is kind of deep for a first episode, but I think I'm trying to make a round trip to all sorts of topics to try to say, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and if you're not here for it, then get out. That kind of rhymed. I really like English, and I really liked creative writing class. I also took a college creative writing course in high school. I went to a very well-off high school. They are a public-private high school. They're public because it's the only high school around for like 3 towns, but they're private because they're a private high school. So I don't really know how to explain that one. That's a weird legal word situation. I don't know. But there we go, saying but again. Call me out. Drinking game. And to those that don't drink alcohol, if you smoke weed, see how high you can get. If you don't smoke weed or drink, get hydrated. Drink water. No one drinks enough water. Hydration game. It's not the drinking game. Just a little laugh to break it up. I'm still watching my rat currently try to dig the seeds out of the foraging toy while her sister is sound asleep, and I find it really funny that she's much more food motivated than her sister, and her sister often gets very jealous that she gets much more food, but it's because, well, she's not paying attention to the food as much. She's not as food motivated. Her sister is very cuddly and loves to just sit on your shoulder and loves to watch whatever you're doing and be part of whatever you're doing. Meanwhile, the one that's very food motivated, her name is Ruby. And the one that is not very food motivated, her name is Emerald. Emerald has a darker stripe down her back. They're black and white with like blacker heads and white bodies with some spots, and then they got a stripe down their back. Ruby's is kind of like a faded non-stripe, but is still a stripe, and then Emerald has this dark stripe that goes about halfway down her back. They're both very, very cute, good girls. However, Ruby can be very chompy. At her breeding home, because I got her from a breeder of an accidental litter, however, she was called Chompers. That was her nickname, because she would just chomp at you through the cage. She would never bite. She was very good, very gentle, but she definitely loves food a little too much. I want to ask if, as my kind of interactive question, do you remember your dreams? Because I remember all of my dreams very vividly, pretty much. And I have a dream like every night. Tonight's dream was about some troubles in my life. I won't go into too much detail because it wasn't really like a funny dream, or it wasn't really anything interesting. It was just about me trying to come to terms with what I want to do with my life. Currently, I'm at a roadblock where I am trying to decide if I want to continue with college. Due to my disability, I can be out of school for a month to 2 weeks at a time, or a few days every here and there, because I will have an RA flare-up. This semester, I got COVID, and that was very detrimental to my immune system, and I was out of work and school for a month. I was out of work for only 2 to 3 weeks, and I was out of school for a month because I had to get cleared. I had to try to communicate, and my school is not always the best at communicating. I think that's just colleges, though, unfortunately. But there we go. But again, drink water, get hydrated. Maybe that'll be a continual joke. Get hydrated, stay hydrated, drinking game. Water drinking game. I'm sorry if I repeat myself a lot. I'm very repetitive. When I like something, I get very repetitive about it. I think that is part of, again, the autism. I lost track of where I was. I do that a lot. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts, and just all of them go everywhere, and I have so much to say, but I'm trying to keep it in a conclusive order for other people to understand, which is a very big struggle of mine. If anyone else sympathizes, please let me know. I know that I grew up with my mother and my dad and my brother that all have the same issue. So when we try to communicate, it can be sometimes a little messy. Because I know that my mother and my brother do this thing where they just start talking out of nowhere, and you're just like, you were chilling on the couch or something, and you're like, hold on. Start from the beginning, because first of all, I wasn't paying attention. Second of all, this was just an assault of knowledge and words that I was not ready for, because I did not know that you even wanted my attention. And it'll just be a bunch of random, it'll just be a random thing to a random thing, and in their mind, it connects, because their neural pathways connect that thought to the other thought. However, those neural pathways aren't made for me, so I'm just sitting here being like, what in the hell are you talking about? They seem to not understand that they need to explain themselves, though. I have gotten a lot better at explaining. Yawn over. I've gotten much better at explaining, because I am the only one of my family members to have gone to therapy, and therapy I advocate very heavily for, because it helps in communication skills, it helps with managing your symptoms of disabilities, disorders, or even just processing your life and processing yourself and being able to be comfortable with yourself, your quirks. I advocate that, it should be provided by healthcare and advertised by healthcare that you should go to therapy at least once a year. However, I know that one therapy session isn't enough, not even close. You don't even have a relationship with this therapist, and a lot of people can't just start talking to a therapist because they're like, I don't know you, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to tell you my secrets. But, like, maybe once a month would be better. I'm an advocate for therapy, and it definitely changes people's lives for the better. Even if you don't have anything wrong with you, per se, though I don't want to say anything wrong with you, but at the same time, diseases and disorders aren't normal. And a lot of people, I had this conversation with my boyfriend the other day about normal. He said there is no normal. And I was like, correct. There is no normal. And this was a discussion regarding my autism. We're going through this struggle where it's not like he doesn't believe me or that I'm not telling the truth, but he has this struggle believing me. Even though he says he believes me, I guess not believe, but grasping the idea that I have autism because I am high functioning and I appear very normal and put together. That's just not the case inside my head, though. And I try to explain the things that go on inside my head, and for him, he just seems to think that I'm just a little weird or a little quirky, and that's the reason why. But he started this argument of, there is no normal. And correct, there is no normal. However, there is a spectrum of congruence that people have with each other. And the majority of the population does struggle with some depression, some anxiety, some struggles. The non-food motivated rat has now found the food and is very interested in using the foraging toy. I'm sorry for the quick interruption. Maybe I'll move that interruption somewhere else. I might just upload this raw just to see if people are interested in me talking. Maybe cut out some of the me pausing parts, but just upload raw audio. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. So far, 26 minutes and 5 seconds of me rambling. But as I was saying, there is a spectrum of what people tend to follow, and everyone has a little bit of anxiety. Everyone has a little bit of disorganization or little quirks that they have. There's a point outside of that spectrum. A blurry, fat, gray line starts to be crossed into, does this interfere with my life? And does it interfere with my life enough to where it's a problem and it's preventing me from having the closest as I can to the best quality of life? And everyone's ideal quality of life is different, again, because I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have Sjogren's syndrome. I have costochondritis and TMJ, and I have all these disorders and whatever. That makes my goal of quality of life a lot lower, unfortunately, than other people's. Because there is no cure for my diseases. There's only management and treatment. But for other people, their quality of life goals are much higher. And then there's also just mental versus physical. But the point being that every individual is unique, but at the same time there is a large group standard that determines what people should aim for within their own unique way. It's a very difficult thing to describe, but I'm hoping I'm describing what I'm talking about enough that people can understand. But while there is no normal, there is a spectrum of regularity within the human species, within rats, within cats, and dogs, and giraffes, and fish, that they all follow this typical pattern. Not normal. Replace normal with typical whenever I mess that up, because I might mess it up a few more times. But there's this typical pattern of behavior that people follow, and this typical pattern of behavior leads to the best quality of life. When you start checking the boxes of, this is interfering with my day-to-day life, this is lowering my quality of life, that is when it becomes atypical and a problem. That's why there is neurotypical, and then there's aneurotypical, without neurotypical, or neurodivergent. It means that you diverge from the neurotypical. That's kind of where I got typical from, because my brain jumped way ahead to there, and we finally got there. It took a while for me to get there, and this is what I'm talking about. My brain's jumping all over the place, and trying to convey my thoughts to a person is very hard, though. This is probably not going to anybody. No one's probably ever going to listen to this. Or maybe my boyfriend will listen to this. Hey, Kevin. I am focused on, though, is there's not one true normal. There isn't a normal person, because everyone has their weird stuff. Like, you can seem like the most normal, quote-unquote, person, but then have a foot fetish, and then people are like, you're not normal anymore. It's like, yeah, everyone has their quirks. He can like feet. Whatever. She can like feet. They can like feet. Doesn't freaking matter. Because it doesn't interfere with their quality of life until you're bullying them for it. Then it affects their quality of life. But it's not affecting their quality of life because they're creating the problem, or their body is creating the problem. That's a social problem. That's when it's not your problem. That's not when you're atypical. That's when you're around shitty people, or you're around in a society that doesn't accept you for who you are, and that's not acceptable or helpful to making you feel comfortable. I hate to be more about me, but I guess this is kind of my introduction to the world. I also have a YouTube channel that I started at one point because I wanted to see if I could entertain people. I love to entertain people. I love storytelling. I love making jokes, making people laugh. I love improving their quality of life. I like sitting with older people at a restaurant, or just talking with them when I was a hostess, and just making their day. I love connecting with people and making them feel better about themselves. I love helping people. I love making sure they're okay. Like my boss at work, there was just something he said to me one day, and I just really wanted to ask, are you okay? But I wasn't sure if I'm not sure he's that type of person that's like gonna be like, I know I need help. I want someone to talk to. I think he's more the type of person that would tell me, no, fuck off. Sorry for swearing, but I'm not going to keep this clean, especially with the deeper, darker topics that I'm going to talk about. I believe that this should be, I don't want to say PG-13, because I don't agree with PG-13. I don't believe 13 is, like, the age. when kids start to grow up. I believe it's more 12, because that's when in America, because I'm in America, if you can't tell by the rant about healthcare or my accent, which even if you live in America, you probably can't tell where I live because my accent is very mixed. But the reason why I want to leave this footage raw is because I want to know what people think of my pauses, of my mess ups. Like, is it entertaining? Is it funny? Is it something you can learn from? Is it something that you can use to process your own emotions, like, about what you do? Do you have these pauses too? Does it make you feel bad? Because it shouldn't. This is how I would have a conversation with people, and I do have those pauses, that brain fog. Like, it wasn't even my rats that time that distracted me or anything. It was just simply, my brain just decided, nah, we're just gonna pause. I very much don't want to bore people, and I'm not sure how long I want this recording to go, because currently I'm at 35 minutes and 53 seconds, and then some stuff's going to be cut out, so it's probably going to be closer to 30 minutes. So should I keep going, or should I not? I have so much more to talk about, and I have so much more to say, but should I upload this big, long episode, and then no one wants to listen to it, or only listen to half of it? I don't know. I think I'm going to cut it off here. That was kind of an introduction to me, and future episodes will be more structured. I'm probably going to post a second episode regardless that is more structured to kind of get the feedback I get from that as well. But this was just an introduction to me, my thought processes, my opinions, and like I said, if you're not about it, get out of it. I don't tolerate people on the internet that are just trolls. I don't tolerate people being mean for the sake of being mean. It's just not acceptable. And it really makes me think about, why are you doing this? And often I don't get that answer, because a lot of people don't want to tell me the answer because they're defensive about that answer. Because they know they're doing something wrong, and they know it's because they have this deep, dark insecurity, and they don't want to tell you because then they feel like now you're gonna use it against them. It's like, I don't want to use it against you, I just want to help you. But anyways, I'm trying to wrap this up. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day, and that this little therapy session was a good one. Because I feel like when you listen to a good podcast, it's a good therapy session. Anyways, love you, be safe, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Bye.